Hello, Circle fam. Welcome back to the Circle podcast. My name is Phillip, and I am gathered here with my best friends. If you guys would like to introduce yourselves.
Hello. My name is Daniel.
Hello, my name is James.
It's extra texture here.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. AKA.
Sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. I went to a concert last night and I rocked my cock off. So,
Love to hear it. Love
Excuse
to
me.
hear it.
Andy, AKA Extra Texture, AKA
Schmeat.
Andy Mandy, AKA Schmeat.
AKA Solo Dolo Andy, rocking the episode by himself last week. If you listen to his randomness.
I gotta say, what the fuck, dude? After I listened to that, I was like, what did I just listen to?
right? That's the effect.
I thought the idea of it was cool, though.
Yeah,
I do like the idea of solo podcast.
I texted him and I was like, we could do this tomorrow. Maybe I'll feel a little better. And he's like, what if I just did it by myself? I'm like, if you're down, dude, come through.
What blows my mind, though, is you've been talking about doing, like, that solo story thing. So that's what I thought. I was like, oh, he finally did it.
Yeah. No. There was a story in there, but it wasn't like just one story.
I got to give it to him because it was very off the dome.
Yeah.
I texted him 15 minutes before he was supposed to come. So he had
completely had to freestyle it.
Yeah.
To ride over here, I was like, okay, fucking, I gotta think what's there to talk about. Okay, yeah, this one. Okay.
After it was what, 36 minutes long or something like that, and he said that 30 minutes felt like 3 hours.
you got to think because most of our episodes have been an hour, but it's four of us talking.
Yeah.
So we're probably talking maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Each.
Yeah.
It was definitely hard.
If we split it up evenly, but
So respect to you, Andy.
yeah,
Respect.
it's a whole episode on your own.
For myself, Daniel, and James, it's nice to be back. I would like to say, because I was away last week and you two were gone for 2 weeks, right?
No, just
or you were, Daniel.
Because I thought the last time we recorded,
What was the last episode? No, we were all together.
we were all together.
was
It was 2 weeks, last
Okay.
weekend.
Oh, but
It's 2 weeks.
he wasn't here. It's been 2 weeks that the four of us have been
okay.
together.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Now
But
we got to figure it out.
One thing I was gonna say before we started recording, before you hit the record button, is
Uh-huh.
that shows how this has become a habit. That it's
Mhm.
weird that we haven't been here.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
feel a little off. Like, oh man, it's like you haven't gone to the gym.
Yeah.
It's like,
Which I have not done at all. I haven't gone in 3 weeks.
oh, I took this week off
I've been working out at work.
at work.
Just pump out some push-ups. Do some.
Actually been
I put-
running.
I've been working out my brain.
I
I've
put-
been fighting a fucking cold.
I put 2 chairs together and I just fucking do dips.
Yeah.
Nah, man. If this was coronavirus, then what the fuck are people dying? Because this ain't shit.
Well,
I
dude,
got through this
coronavirus
with you.
isn't that deadly, man.
It's contagious.
Ebola was way worse. It's
But
still worse.
hasn't this consumed more lives than Ebola did?
I don't think it has.
I feel like it passed up something, didn't it?
They like to
It
talk
passed
about
up a certain disease.
They like to talk about how many people have died, but they don't like to talk about how many people have been cured and saved.
Oh yeah, they want to put the
Yeah,
fucking
certain-
mass
Which is a lot
into
more
hysteria.
than-
Certain
Bro,
stats are
We're still
dramatized, like they're emphasized more than they should be.
we're still more likely to die from the flu, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's still much more deadly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait to be 70. Fucking die from the flu.
Bro, by then,
How
man,
stupid is that?
we'll have prosthetic bodies. We'll all be cyborgs, dude.
Man, if I die from the flu, don't even have a funeral for me.
Just spit on
Just
my
fucking
corpse.
toss me.
I like how you said you can't wait for that, and you're like, man, if I die from that,
Oh, that was sarcastic. If I die from the flu, just fucking toss me in a wood chipper.
spread me across the lawn.
Use me as compost.
Okay, now that we've had the weirdest start to our show, today's my episode, and I wanted to. It's not really subject based. It's more of opinion based, I would say. I asked these guys to choose their favorite movie or TV characters, and we're just gonna talk about them and find what it is that's so captivating, so interesting to watch these characters in their world, and why we enjoy them so much. And I'll start with my first one. This is probably one of my favorite characters out of any movie I've ever seen, and it is Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday from Tombstone. Do we all know who that is?
I haven't seen the movie in a very long time.
Okay.
So I've seen it a few times too. I don't remember it.
I was deprived of watching a lot of movies.
One of the most
important, iconic movies.
You were, Daniel. You were.
It's not iconic, but it's like one of the most badass cowboy movies you can see. You know.
I feel like it's an iconic Western for sure.
Like,
right? In the Western genre.
Yeah,
I watched
you
Nacho
can say
Libre
that.
for the first time.
For the first time.
You know,
Tuesday.
I'll say Nacho Libre is one of those movies where it's more fun to talk about and quote than to actual watch.
I thought it was pretty funny though. Like, so usually you guys are like, I remember when in high school we were doing when Kevin Hart's stand up came out. And you guys would always talk about it, and I'd laugh at it so much more when you guys said it versus when I actually watched it. I'm like, oh, that's not how it goes.
Telling Kevin that's
not his joke.
Desensitized, dude.
But yeah, one thing for me, I've noticed with the characters that I love, they're very quotable, and I feel Doc Holliday is one of the most quotable characters out there. You know, some of his lines, if you've come across someone that's seen the movie, they know exactly what you're talking about. You know, he has the line, "I'm your Huckleberry." There's a scene where Johnny Ringo, he's drunk in the street and he wants to kill his, Doc Holliday's friend, right? He says, "I want your blood, I want your soul, I want both of them now." And Wyatt Earp, he says, "I'm unarmed and I'm not going to fight you." You know, he's like, "Well, too bad, you're going to fight me." And then Doc Holliday, or they begin to walk away, and Johnny Ringo says, "Are any of you man enough or to fight?" You know, and then Doc Holliday is sitting off to the side at the saloon, and he walks up and says, "I'm your Huckleberry," and it is one of the most iconic lines from the movie, because anywhere you go, you can find someone that knows that line.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
But
he has
recognizable.
He has that that line, "Isn't that a daisy?" Or whenever he's faced with someone that believes that they got him, you know, he says, "Well, you're a daisy if you do." You know,
Dang.
He's just a very quotable character, and I've noticed that with the 3 characters that I've picked, I can remember certain quotes. You know,
I was about to say I don't remember like any quotes from my except like
really?
one. But yeah, I can't recall necessarily.
You never seen any movies?
Nah, it's just I don't
Back
think it's like
back
it's in
off
my
the mic a little.
Oh,
brother.
it's in my it's in my
I'm, like, kissing
head,
it.
but I never go about like it'll stick with me, but it's never like perfectly quoted, you know. I like it's like paraphrased or summarized in my own head, you know.
All right, off the top, since you just watched Nacho Libre,
Yeah, give us something.
give us a quote.
Get that corn out of my face.
There we go.
There you go. But
I just like how angry he is.
But for myself, I feel like a good character has to have at least one good quote. That one quote that really sticks with you, that like after it's said, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
there's some weight behind that, you know?
Definitely.
Other things about Doc Holliday, he's intelligent, you know, he understands Latin. There's a scene where his counterpart to the movie, Daniel, is Johnny Ringo. Johnny Ringo is supposed to be the other guy that is equal, if not better than him, you know, and they first meet. Doc Holliday is drunk himself, and Wyatt Earp tells Johnny Ringo, "Don't mind him, he's drunk," you know. And then Doc Holliday speaks in Latin, and he says, even I think the interpreted version is that he said, "Even when I'm drunk, I speak truths," or something like that. And Johnny Ringo responds to him back in Latin, you know. So it was a really cool scene, and for the longest time no one really knew what was said, because around that time
It wasn't really
you couldn't really
translated.
put subtitles and interpret.
Yeah.
You know, it was a cool scene, but normally Doc Holliday is very one step ahead of his, you know, the other guy, and he's dangerous, very dangerous. You know, he recognizes that Johnny Ringo is as deadly as Wild Bill, and these are all real historical people.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, Johnny Ringo.
What movie is this called again?
Tombstone. Yeah, really good movie. But he recognizes that he says as fast or as deadly as Wild Bill. and at the end of the movie, they ended up fighting.
I'm gonna have to.
And fighting in Western days was just gunslinging, off the hip, bow.
Dead.
Yeah. One thing I feel like I should say too before we get deeper into this episode is that there might be some spoilers.
Oh yeah, we didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. I feel like Tombstone is kind of like the macho man kind of movie, I told Alyssa, I'm like, hey, you want to watch Tombstone? She's like, what's it about? I'm like, it's a cowboy movie. She's like, no. She's like, I don't like that kind of
Doesn't
stuff.
connect
I'm like,
with it.
come on.
Well, at what point would you consider it like what point would it be acceptable to spoil? I would consider that it's acceptable to spoil
Yeah,
now
it's
just
been out
because
for a
it's
while.
been out for a while.
I think
Oh,
if it's
dude,
not
what's
in
the time
theaters
limit?
anymore, you could spoil it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fair timeline.
I just wanted to say that there might be
Yeah.
spoilers,
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, being smart, dangerous, he's very loyal. At the end of the movie, Wyatt Earp is on a mission to, save or go after this outfit, these bandits that Johnny Ringo's a part of, and at one point in the movie, Doc Holliday's getting ill of some sickness. I don't remember what it was, but one of the guys asked him like, "Why are you out here? Like, you should be in bed resting." And he says, "Wyatt Earp is my friend." And the guy responds with, "I have many friends, and not many of them would be out here." Or he says, "I have a whole lot of friends, but not a lot would be out here doing this the way that you are." And he says, I don't have very many friends." So he's a very loyal character. And one thing I love most about him is he has a badass mustache. Most of the men in that movie have badass mustaches.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna look this up right now. Actually,
it's a great movie.
Just to clarify, I'm getting more ideas, so I'm writing notes down before I forget.
Oh, okay.
Any viewers, so you don't think I'm like just texting here.
I'm actually almost caught up to editing all the episodes that we have been video recording.
Oh, on video? Nice.
I'm 2 away, plus Andy's, plus this one now, so only 4.
Nice.
Damn.
Takes me about an hour for each one.
Excuse me.
But yeah, that's my first favorite, probably one of my most favorite. What do you guys got?
Who wants to go first?
I could go. If either of you don't want to go.
I'll go.
Okay.
But yeah, this guy looks like. Before I start, I just saw the movie Miracle. That was a pretty good movie too.
Miracle.
It was a hockey one. Well, it
Miracle on
was
Ice?
Yeah.
About the USA hockey team beating
during the Cold
Soviets?
War.
Yeah.
And they win. They beat the Russians.
Another great movie. It's on Disney Plus.
Oh, okay.
This is a real story. The coach, he decided that he wasn't going to use any professional American hockey players. He decided that he was going to use only college hockey players.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And the Soviets were the best team in the world at that
Yeah.
time. Yeah. And it's just about them
Going
going
true
through
story.
Yeah, going through the trenches, the coach just grilling them,
Yeah.
to make them a great team, and then they ended up beating the Soviets.
Damn.
It's a great movie. We watched that movie before we did our first, I think, playoff game for soccer back in high school.
Like I'm not
For inspiration.
I'm not really like into watching like sports, but like like sports movies is like different. Like I do that was actually a pretty good movie, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, this guy's in it. What's his name?
Val Kilmer?
Is that's
Which one you looking at?
This guy right here?
Oh, that's Wyatt Earp.
Isn't he in? He's in the Miracle.
Yeah,
that's him, right?
what the fuck is
Is
his
that Kurt
name?
Russell?
Yes, Kurt Russell. There you
Oh,
go.
okay.
He's
Yeah.
in,
Doc Holliday's on the far left.
far left. Okay.
Yeah. You could tell he's sweating. That's at the point
Yeah.
where his sickness is starting to become apparent.
Dang. Okay. All right. Well, so I wouldn't say in terms of. So is this just like movie characters, or are we just
Or television, any character that has been created
but like just characters that have inspired you, or like
that have
people-
stuck with you?
Okay. I wouldn't necessarily. It's kind of actually that's different now. Because I was thinking of like originally I was thinking like characters that have inspired you. I think that's what I had it in my head.
That's fine too. I'm not gonna hold you against that.
But let's say I don't not necessarily. They're like, because like there's never like everything I like fully about a character. You know, there are things I would want to change. So I never like none of them like really like. I'm never like I want to be like that guy. You know, because there are things that I want to put my own twist on or approach differently. But I do get inspired, and I tried to dissect and understand what it was exactly. And that was the cool thing about it is that, well, one, I'd like to point out how you were inspired, and it reflects like who you are, kind of. I never thought of it that way. But like one example, and I tried to put it together. I watched 7 Pounds, dude. Good movie. I cried about like.
Is that the one with Will Smith?
Four times, yeah. That was a super good movie.
Wait, what's it about?
It's just so spoiler, obviously. He gets in a like he has like a successful life and everything, and then he gets in a car crash because of texting, and in the car like he's with his wife, and he. I don't know, he makes like a mistake. He goes on the other side of the road, and then he runs into he like makes the other passenger van on the oncoming road with like 7 people or 6 people like flip over, and everyone dies but him.
So essentially he killed.
Yeah, he killed people. And he was feeling guilty for that.
And this is Will Smith?
Yeah. Okay. And he wanted to make up for that. And he like he felt guilty, but he wanted to make up for that by helping 7 other people. And that was like, you know, like random strangers or people who are good and needed the change. Like, so like he like there's this blind person. He gave his eyes to him, or someone who has having heart failure. He did like they took all his organs.
Oh, dang.
And put them in other people. Anyways, yeah, good movie. I think one of the things I would like to point out about that, I think it's sacrifice. I don't know what it is about sacrifice, or. And I texted Andy last week, but I think the idea of like burying it so that others won't have to, that I don't know, something about that motivates me. But I'm kind of like moving away from that because I'm learning that I can be happy. Because I don't know, I kind of want to just enjoy I'm learning to enjoy my time more. But that was like one example. The main example for me, I was gonna say Rick from Rick and Morty. It's my best friend. He goes with me everywhere. I think what it is the reality of like their past. Like you see all these like successful people, and like to see the hardships that they've gone through. Not like I'm not talking about like the struggle to get where they are. I'm talking about like, you know, people they've lost. You know, losing your family. Like I think it makes things more not comparable but relative, you know, because everyone goes through their own thing, and to see someone like not stop and give up at like points where, you know, you would understand that they would quit, they still decide to like make this like effort to like, you know, to I don't know, to still strive for being like doing something great, you know, like that's not like be purposefully being great, but to make change or enjoy their lives, whatever it is. I think that's the cool thing about that, is just seeing the reality. Like I watched Bill Gates' documentary on Netflix. It was Inside Bill's Mind, and like I had no idea any of that. And like originally I just heard Bill Gates, like billionaire guy, made some Microsoft, but I had no idea all this other stuff that he was doing and all the things he's encountered, and he's still grinding. Like he's doing all this crazy stuff. I think that's one of the things that stick out to me when it comes to characters, is that they just don't quit, you know, like regardless, and their belief for something, because like you can never force yourself to believe in something. You just know it, you know, if you know, because if you strongly believe in something, it's going to reflect somehow. It's going to come out somewhere. You're going to see, you can see the passion. It's measurable.
Rick is real.
But I think that's someone I wanted to talk about today.
Yeah.
well, let me say.
There's levels to that guy, dude.
I think with Rick, like, I think it's his. He's just, regardless of, he knows a lot of hard truths, and he's had a dark past, but despite that, he still chooses to do what he wants to do, and he's always like he knows, like, I'm sure. For me, one of the things I admire is people who actually want to take the time to know something. Because, like, that's the worst feeling. I think that's one of the things I hate the most, is not knowing something. I feel terrible. Or, like, you go into a job and you have nothing to offer, and you're just you're just sitting, you know, you're useless. And I hate that. So, like, I like the fact that these are not things I want to say. I'm just kind of rambling.
No.
But, well, one thing I want to add that I feel like adds to what you were saying about Rick. Well, like, for me, when I was trying to think of concepts or, like, characters, what I ended up doing is kind of coming up with categories for some of them. So, like, for me, one of the categories that kind of resonated with me is this idea that intelligence is freedom. So, some of the characters that I have is, like, Tony Stark, Spider-Man, and Rick. Like, because of their intelligence, they're able to change their lives, change their influence, and even change their realities, right?
It's control, I would say. Like, it's a level of control.
I think it's a level of control. But what's funny about that is that, like, that's such an old concept, right? That comes from Greek philosophers. Like, that was the whole point of Allegory of the Cave by Plato, is that idea that with intelligence, you're going to have freedom, clarity, this lack of ignorance, and just being told what to believe, right? And I think what sucks about Rick and Morty is that the fan base can be so toxic and so cringe, and I feel like that turns a lot of people off.
Yeah, it's
but what they don't realize is that there's so many levels to this show. Like, you have that very shallow level of dick jokes and fart jokes, but then down towards the bottom, what the show is based on is existentialism on steroids. It's this idea that, you know, you have someone named Rick who is the most intelligent person in the universe, can literally create whatever he puts his mind to, can change dimensions, can essentially travel through time. He's pretty much a god, right? But the one thing he can't escape is the absurdity of life, is how everything is so meaningless. And even more so because for us, we still have this comfort of, well, I'm the only me. I'm the only unique, you know, James. There's only one of me, so, you know, I am somewhat special. But in his case, because of his access to other parallel universes, he doesn't even have that. He knows that he himself is not special because there's an infinite amount of hims, right? Yeah. And what's crazy, and I think what the underlying message of the show is, you can be a god, but you cannot escape that. And I think that's why he struggles. That's why, you know, he always has this depression. That's why he's always drunk. He's always drinking. And you see little glimpses of that in certain episodes where he's just trying to fill that void and that understanding of absurdity with adventures, with, you know, high risk situations. And it'll never be filled. And, you know, it's this weird thing where it's almost like a paradox, or not a paradox. Is it a paradox or an oxymoron? One of those where it almost contradicts itself, because intelligence is freedom, but at the same time, when you truly understand the absurdity, it could be limiting.
There's a scale to it.
It's hard to deal with.
Do you remember when Thanos and Tony Stark, they meet on what's that? They meet on Titan.
Yeah.
He's like, and he knows Tony Stark. He's like, "Oh, you're cursed with knowledge, just like me."
Like me, yeah.
And that's it's freedom, but at the end of the day, when you are able to understand everything, like you said, you understand that everything
matters.
means nothing. Yeah. Nothing matters. I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards Rick, because he could be super cynical and super fucked up, but when you get those glimpses of a human being, Like, you
Yeah, he
realize
just wants to go in an arcade.
Yeah,
and
you
get
realize
drunk.
he's just like you.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are the same people, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people or feel empathy towards him. You know what I mean?
Some type
'Cause
of connection.
Yeah.
And that goes to something else I wanted to mention. One thing that I realized about this idea of connecting with a character, like for me at least, I realized it's always three things. It's either I like this character because it's who I am, or it's I like this character because who I want to be, or I like this character because I fear that I could be this character. And I think Rick touches on all three.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be intelligent. I want to have power like that. I am like him, where I get depressed
And
and
existentialism.
and it's hard to live with
And
myself.
learning to cope with it.
Yeah, and then I also fear that I won't handle it well, just how he doesn't handle it well
Yeah.
sometimes.
I think I get that. I love that show. But that's not one of the thing that's been sticking out to me. Is like I feel like I'm learning to cope with that existentialism. But I think that in itself, dude, there's so many levels to that. Like there's like the science in it. There's the comedic, like you said. There's so many things to be piqued by it, by the show.
Mm-hmm.
But that idea itself is more than enough to watch it, I would say.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Interesting. I don't know anything about that show.
You should
I
check
really
it out,
don't.
man.
I know. I'm always a little too late to shows. I usually take my time getting there.
But that's why I always have them in my car, because we're both like
I know.
we're like
On the journey.
we're the same.
I legit knew you were gonna bring him up. in this
Yeah.
conversation. I knew he was gonna pick your character, and I knew you were gonna pick Rick. So
It's my guy.
it wasn't
I guess it'd be a good time just to
Surprising.
bring up my character.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So I chose, sorry, it's really loud. Thanos from the Avengers. And you were talking about how the three things about characters, how you see yourself in them, you could be that. I'm not the sociopathic, psychotic Thanos by any means, but I feel like the underlying thing or his underlying mission I could connect with, not with that in a sense, but trying to work hard and doing anything to achieve that. I feel like I can connect with.
It's very interesting about his character too, because if he wasn't the villain in the movie and he was painted in a different way, his goal towards evening out the universe, you think like that's not all terrible. It's terrible the way he's going about it, but it's not
I
terrible.
think that's the thing. You see that difference with Infinity War versus Endgame. I think Endgame just
you can see the changes of who Thanos is.
where he's just a more classic villain in Endgame, right?
Yeah. But also you see the growth from when he was the New York 2012 Thanos to where he grew to know who Tony Stark is, who the Avengers are, where the stones are, and his understanding of what he wants his goal to be now that he knows where it's all at, how he's going to make this plan work. Like he grew from 2012 to Infinity War.
Yeah.
And then you get Endgame, and it's that 2012 Thanos that just got his ass beat by the Avengers on Earth. He's pissed off, and he comes and he's like, I'm gonna fucking wipe all these motherfuckers out.
Yeah, you could, like, in that short amount, because Thanos is like thousands of years old, right? But in that short amount of time from the 2012 to Infinity War, when you see 2012 him and then you see Infinity War him, you can see like this, I don't know, like this shift in personality. Like I would definitely say Thanos is definitely the most wisest character in that in those two movies. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know why this is buzzing.
Yeah, hold on.
All right, back to Thanos. So I wrote a couple things down, not a couple, but a lot, just on the basis of his principles and
Can I guess? No, I'm joking.
And you know what he meant and what he wanted to accomplish. All right. So he had a connection to all life, but in turn meant he had to have a connection to death, which means so his main goal was to eliminate 50% of all life in the universe, so that the universe would continue to live in a sense, right?
Yep.
And the reason for this is because he saw what had happened on his home planet of Titan. He saw that it was overpopulated, overconsumption of resources. So, and then, eventually Titan went to shit, right? So he wanted to do this, and he saw firsthand what happened, right? So he didn't want that to happen to the whole universe. I blanked out. But he wanted to conserve the universe, right? And I think of this as conservation hunting. Right? When you want to eliminate a like a single animal that's not contributing to the species.
Yeah.
Right? That is very detrimental to the habitat and to their niche. And this is why you see a lot of quote unquote trophy hunting. It's not that they're just going to kill. Well, yeah, they want to kill like like a lion. They want it, I guess, on their repertoire, but they're not just killing like some random lion, right? A lot of the times they're actually paying money to kill one of the lions that isn't contributing to the species. But I have a question for all you guys. If you could save the human race with the press of a button, but 50% of the population ceases to exist, would you press it? We'll just start with you, James.
Okay, let me ask this. What do you mean by save the human race?
I guess overpopulation, it's getting too populated. Eventually, we're just going to run out of...
Eventually.
Yeah,
Okay.
resources.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Just because I don't think that's my job. And
that's a good point. I'll get back to that
okay.
with Thanos.
I don't think that's my job. That's the circle of life. Where the human race will most likely go extinct at some point. Just as most other species have gone extinct. And that's life. I'm okay with that. I don't mind being forgotten. All this is gone, whatever.
I'm with James on that one, actually. It's not for us to decide. It's natural selection. It's the way of life. We're actually, like, anything we do would be artificial. If it came down to a decision like that. But also, I wouldn't push it because did we actually come down to all the solutions? Did we actually,
Yeah.
did we... Because there's so many ways, you can skin a cat. But...
I think to clarify, too, of course, I think it makes sense as a species to do what we can to preserve ourselves, right? And to work towards that. But I think if it came down to a decision like that, you're killing half the population...
If it was a time-sensitive matter, absolutely,
yeah.
we know for sure,
within a year,
yeah, that we will die, and the only way, we will all die together, or half of us could at least live, then
it's a little different.
Yeah, it's a little different. I would be more of a utilitarian approach at that point.
I think my answer would be yes on the situation base that we are almost there. We almost have the solution, but the resources are just being used up too quickly. I think I would press it then, because it's like, okay, we almost have the answer, but we just don't have enough time. Hitting that shit deal.
Deal.
Right, so my next question is, if you could save...
Howie Mandel pops out.
Same question, but...
Open up that briefcase.
There's a little twist to it, all right?
Okay.
If you could save the human race with the press of a button, but your family, friends, pets, and everyone you know stays, but only the elderly and sick cease to exist, would you press that button?
Only the elderly are sick. But your family, friends, and
Everyone,
pets
yeah.
are safe.
But, and other families as well.
Everyone you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would
Would I be selfish if I said yes?
I think
I like how you flipped it on its head.
I like it. I
Yeah.
think if it's still on a whim, I still probably wouldn't say yes. If it's like, oh, we think, within the next 100 years, the species will cease to exist, I would still say no.
No, this is like
the
the human
fuck-
race is dying. If you don't press this button,
Oh, then yes.
The fucked
That
up,
Yeah.
they would have to be the first to go.
the fucked up part is that everyone will know that someone in your family pressed that button because the older people are still alive in your
yeah,
family.
they're gonna be like, who are the only old people left? And we're
Yeah.
gonna track.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
but hey, my grandparents had a lot of kids,
Uh-huh.
so they would
No,
have a
I'm-
lot of people to sift through to try to find me.
I would not like. I would think it's only fair that my grandparents would be included in that. Like I wouldn't.
So you'd off them yourself?
Yeah. Not that. Not. Well,
I'm sorry, Grandma.
I wouldn't offer myself.
Daniel's
but,
always thinking of what's fair.
like it's yeah.
Yeah.
Like
so
I don't think.
you would press it.
Well, to be fair, that didn't influence my decision.
No.
Of like, oh, my family's safe.
Yeah. No.
No, it didn't.
It's a
know.
perk.
Yeah,
It's a perk, yeah.
Honestly, I was just like, okay, like whatever. For me, it was just more of like, I think it's fair that the elderly and sick are the ones to go.
It's kind of like the coronavirus. We're not really worried about it. Like people are talking about it, but how big day to day are you worried about getting that shit?
I'm not worried at all.
Exactly. But if
Yeah.
you're an old person,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, oh shit.
But and to be fair, I would still feel the same way if I was in that category.
I
If
I would let
I'm
myself
extremely
go.
old,
Yeah.
just let me go.
Well,
bro.
there was a
Just
movie.
Let me go.
There was a movie like that with
I've lived my life.
was it Keanu Reeves? It wasn't a great movie, but it was supposed to be like the apocalypse, and then like the quote unquote angels came down and gathered all the children.
Oh, was it Legion
I don't think it was Legion,
or No, that was a TV show. I think.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
but there was a movie like that, right? It's the same thing, the older people had their chance, they fucked everything up, and then we're gonna come and save the children and give them an opportunity to
Yeah.
do right,
Yeah.
which
That's very metaphoric to what's going on in our society.
Andy, quick question. I know, and you mentioned it earlier, but conservation hunting. So is that like something that doesn't contribute, but is also taking up space? Like, is it?
Just using up resources.
Yeah.
isn't
no fitness, no reproduct.
yeah,
like,
just it's not.
See, but that's what I mean, though. Like, unless it's a dire situation, I don't think it's our job to make that decision
not.
of who stays and who goes. That's just the circle of life,
Mhm.
I think everyone should have a chance.
I don't know. Honestly, I'm like a little confused on like the lines between artificial and like natural are kind of like blending in, because isn't it natural that we are
Well, because
doing
we're
what
a
we're
product,
doing? Yeah,
we're
exactly.
a product of that cycle. I mean, I think you could argue that it is, and you could argue that
Because
it isn't.
it's in our nature to make these changes. So
Yeah.
in a way, it is natural, but at the same time, it is artificial. Anything we
I think that-
do is considered.
Is it
artificial.
natural to kill people?
It would. It would.
See, that's
be,
a hard. That's a.
it
You don't
would
think it's
be-
natural to kill people?
It
I-
would
I
be just
think-
like
I
a
think it
tiger,
is, yeah.
just
I
like
think
a
it's a natural
tiger eating
feeling.
a rabbit, or
Yeah.
I think it's just because it's at our level of like intelligence.
Complete side thing, but there's always something that I think about at least once every few months, and it's how much we've changed as a species, and how in today's day and age, serial killers are seen as monsters, right? But a few hundred years ago, 1,000 years ago, serial killers were emperors. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You think of Genghis Khan. If he was alive today, he'd be a serial killer.
Yep.
Serial killer, serial rapist. But back then, that was just a pinnacle of survival.
that was
you
just
know?
a man in power.
A man in power, and that's crazy, and that makes me question a lot of these ideas of what's natural and what's
Mhm.
unnatural.
Like we
Because
do-
how could we
yeah.
say anything is unnatural
Yeah.
if we're just a byproduct of the universe? Then through extension, everything we do is also natural, right?
Mhm.
It's a weird thing. It's weird because we have consciousness and morality, and and
Yeah,
thoughts. And
exactly.
self-reflection,
It's at
that's
our
where
level
it
of
gets
intelligence
weird.
because we wouldn't have prisons. You know, like
Yeah.
they would just be gone. So
Yeah.
like it's just like the people at the end of the chain, they're just let go. That's just how it is with natural selection. So, but yeah, no, I'm still, I gotta think about that a little bit more. But what were we talking?
No, but
about? That's
Hit
conservation
the
hunting.
hitting the button. Yeah.
In the button.
So the reason I asked these questions, I would say, I might say yes to the second one, but I would say no to the first one. And the reason I asked these questions is just because I wanted to see if there was a little Thanos in all of us. You know, like if we would.
I think there is.
I feel like I will touch on that when I get to my
Your next character.
yeah.
So yeah, and he's the reason. I don't know. I can connect with him. It's just like, it's because of that. It's because when I ask these questions to myself, you know, it's almost it wasn't a immediate no. It was like, okay, well, let me think about it. Right. So, but what we were saying earlier about it being like a natural cycle of life. Like, yeah, we're I think it's very much egotistical with the human race is that we think things end with us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, if you go 100 million years back, did a dinosaur think that they were going to be the last species to ever exist? Right? No, they didn't think that. Right? So
Didn't cross their mind.
yeah,
Little
it's
pea
very
brain.
egotistical of us to think that things end with us because we don't know that. Right? There could be very well, 100 million years from now, if the Earth is still habitable.
Oh, well, I mean, it would just like regrow again.
It's just a cycle.
Yeah.
It's just a cycle.
There could be very well a better species or a better, I guess, branch of human, that's smarter, stronger than us.
I think what's interesting though is we could very well become a species that's quote unquote
Permanent.
immortal that exists for as long as the universe exists.
That's if we expand to other areas.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's crazy is that evolution is all about environmental pressures, right?
Mm.
And there's only so many different types of environmental pressures. There isn't like an infinite amount,
Mhm.
And the ultimate one is like if you could survive the vacuum of space.
Yeah.
Then if you could survive vacuum space, you don't need any other type of resources. You don't need sunlight, anything like that.
Yeah.
Self-sustaining.
I think
What other pressure can there be that's going to take you out?
Yeah, I think especially once we pass the reason why Earth there's been like I think 12 extinctions, but everyone thinks there's just like one, but each time it's because of like CO2 emissions and things get too toxic and Earth isn't it's not habitable anymore. But I think that that's our biggest like that would definitely prolong we'd become immortal at that point if we do learn.
Or an immortal species.
Yeah.
So just to get into kind of why, I feel like Thanos was a character. He was a villain, anti-hero, but
Anti-hero.
I feel like, he wasn't just that typical villain, right? He wasn't just someone out here doing bad shit.
He wasn't irrational.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
wasn't irrational.
He was very wise. He wasn't, but I wrote down some of the things why, he connected with a lot of people. Or I think. He showed a lot of human emotion. He showed love. He showed greed, content, happiness. To get the soul stone, right? When he killed
Sacrifice.
When he killed Gamora.
Yeah.
That's when she found out that he actually loved her. And he was very much sad that he had to do it, but which brings in his famous quote, the hardest choices require the strongest wills. The end of the first movie when after he snaps, when he's sitting there looking at the sunset and you see that little grin on his face, which is what I mean by content and happiness. He did it. He actually did what he set out to do, and he could finally rest.
I'm just like remembering first seeing that movie in theaters, and
It was great.
that's how it ended. And
Yeah.
it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I just thought to myself, you should have aimed for the head.
But to him, the Avengers, to him, nothing was really personal. they were just hiccups in his path, right?
Yeah.
He could have easily killed all of them, right?
He didn't really try. No, he was just strictly trying to get the stones.
Strictly business.
He's just like, you're in my way. This is what I want to do, you know? Like, yeah, he's kind of a mass murderer, you know? He goes to a lot of planets and wipes out 50% of the population. But, like, you also see that that rational side of him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what makes him a villain exactly? Just because he had how he went about
think
it,
the
or
morality-
just the difference in opinion?
The morality of it. You know, he wanted to
I think
just wipe
it's-
out 50% of the population.
Yeah, against people's will.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
murder,
he,
right?
He
That's
didn't
murder.
really give him
Murder.
a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that'll lead me to why a thing that I didn't like about him. But when he first snapped at the end of the first movie, it wasn't more of, I didn't have any negative emotions. It was more of like, wow, he fucking did it, right? Like he fucking snapped.
Like
and-
disbelief.
Yeah. Like he went through all this shit and he finally fucking did it. So I think that was a big tell about why I liked him. Because it wasn't a more like, oh, I hope the Avengers fucking come back. And, you know, I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of okay with this.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't feel eager to watch the last movie. Like it took me like
Yeah, it was
a
like
whole another
almost-
year to watch.
A lot of it was like, I didn't want it to end, but a lot of it I was like, I'm okay with this. Like,
Yeah. For me, it was
ended
like,
very
well,
great.
what now?
Yeah.
Like, what
Yeah, how
really
are they
can they
gonna-
do now?
Yeah.
But leading back to his action and his decision, in the second movie, you know, when Captain America comes back from the little therapy group he has, and they're all just talking about the people that they've lost due to the snap, and he comes back and he talks to Black Widow, and he tells her, he's like, well, for the first time I saw a pod of whales swimming through I think they're in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swimming under the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, I believe so.
You know, and he kind of has like a smile on his face, you know, because he sees that life is, you know, his action, what Thanos did, you see, he has a first-hand account of what life there could be.
Yeah, how it's changing because half the population is now
It was kind of
gone.
like a foreshadow of if the snap wasn't reversed,
What-
those pod of whales just could have been everything else, you know, plants,
Yeah.
life, whatever, you name it.
That's interesting. I've never heard anyone bring that up yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good.
That-
I don't,
that-
I don't
that-
even remember that scene, honestly.
Yeah, that's one of the scenes. That's interesting you say that because no one has brought that up, as you know, and as
Yeah,
an
that stuck with
example
me.
that what Thanos did change. You know.
Yeah, it was changing.
Yeah.
And that scene really stuck with me, because Captain America, he's, you know what I mean, he does what's right. He is the like epitome of a perfect human being,
Mhm.
sacrifice, willing to do anything, right,
Mhm. Doing
to save other people.
Yeah, doing the right thing.
Yeah, and for him to kind of smile and then notice that, it was just like, okay, well, you know, it's I don't know, it really touched me.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not saying Thanos' snap is the right thing to do. But the thing that bothered me about Thanos was that he felt that he was the one to
make
have
that-
to make the correction in the universe. You know what I mean? Just because of things that he went through in his home planet. It's like, why do you feel that? Why do you feel like you have to be the one?
That's crazy that he even brought it up to a larger scale like that.
For the
Yeah.
whole
Like-
universe.
Yeah.
Like not just like his planet or one planet. It's everything.
Mm-hmm. So that's I would say that's the only thing that bothered me, is just that he felt that I don't know, he felt compelled to fix the universe. But
See-
what makes you that person?
Yeah.
And the only thing that made him that person was just his past experiences.
That just
That's
shows,
That's the thing,
one-
how do you know if you're right?
Yeah, no one appointed him. No one told him
Mm.
like, Thanos, this is what you need to
that
do.
just shows how strongly he believed in it. Like to even bring it up to a scale like that. Like this guy
Yeah.
was no joke.
But it's
Yeah.
crazy to think that for how long he's lived, just so much his mindset. Like you would think someone that lives that long wouldn't think that way. To me, anyways.
Yeah.
Like when I think of a wise person, I think of someone who is
Like Like more empathetic.
more empathetic, is going to do what's
patient.
right, is going to want to hurt the least amount of people that they can, right? And they've gone through every situation in their head. They've played it out, because obviously that's not the way to go about things. Is to just eliminate.
It's literally pointless. Population growth is exponential.
Yeah.
You know how long it probably wouldn't take long for the population to have gone back to the same number.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also unfair too, because like that age difference, like not everyone has that same timeline. Like, or I wonder if he would have included him.
That's the thing. I think
himself.
it was very arrogant that he didn't cease to exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, he was using up a lot of resources throughout the universe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you, if you were also contributing to eliminating resources, why wouldn't you cease to exist yourself? So those are the two things that bother me. Yeah, that was my character.
For me, I feel like I have somewhat of a acknowledgement towards that person or character that is willing to become that person. You know, like I'm not like in your situation that bothered by it, you know, because he was willing to be that person that he quote unquote has the strong will to make the tough decision. You know, I it doesn't bother me as much, you know, because why do we need an explanation of why he decided? You know, I think that's just like a search for, you know, answers that, you know, don't need to be answered. But thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. I have two more characters, and I don't know which one to pick. Two or three.
Pick your favorite.
Yeah. No. Two or three.
Oh, you're asking us?
Yeah.
Two. How far in are we?
We're around 47 minutes.
Are you saying to do two right now?
Hmm?
Or what do you mean 2 or 3? 2 or 3
You want
total?
Choose. Do I pick
choose
number
2 or
2
3.
or pick number 3?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Or are we just
I
waiting
guess
for
I
James's
lost.
answer?
No, I was gonna pick 3, but it's 2 against 1.
Unanimous decision. All right, I like it. All right, my second favorite character, and this is a recent character, is from Peaky Blinders. It's Thomas Shelby. I
Shelby.
feel like we all know who that is, right?
I knew you were gonna say
Intelligent fucking character. But what defines Tommy Shelby, I feel like I chose 3 of my favorite quotes from him, and it really shows his character from these quotes. And it's the one I've already mentioned. It's one where Grace asks him, do you think of me as a whore? And he says, we are all whores, Grace. We just sell different parts of ourselves, right? And if you look at that first quote, and it gives a little understanding towards what Tommy's been through. You know, he just got back from the First World War from Paris, and he was one of the worst positions you can get. I think they called them clay kickers, right? So they dug tunnels underneath the ground, and sometimes they'd be digging beside the British, and they would actually run into each other, and they would have to do hand-to-hand combat, you know, and kill a man basically with your hands, you know. But after the war, he was decorated for that. He came back, you know. But once he came back, throughout the show, there's moments where you can hear people say that the war changed him. You know, a part of him was lost there. That he sold part of himself there at the war, and there's glimpses of, you know, there's one time I think in the movie or in the show that he actually smiles, you know, and that's the one time you get to see like that past him. And once he realized that he was in a place that it looked like he was becoming happier again, it started to collapse a little. Like his plans started to become unraveled, and then he realized like he can't be that anymore. You know, he sold part of himself. The second thing, I've mentioned this to you, James. This quote has stuck with me for a while. he had just made a tough decision in the show, and he comes into the horse stables and he starts shoveling shit. And one of the characters, his name's Curly. Asks him, "What are you doing, Tommy?" And Tommy says, "I'm shoveling shit, Curly." And he says, "Well, what are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And Tommy says, to remind myself why I am who I am. You know, he wanted to put himself in that situation of shoveling shit and doing the hard work that, you know, any normal man can do, you know, to remind himself that he is the bad guy that he is, because he doesn't want to be that guy. He wants to build an empire. He wants to be that bad guy. Please have the disabled, blah, blah. Yeah, but it was basically just to show that, you know, he's the gangster that he is because he doesn't want to choose that life. And then the third quote is a scene where he's in a prison cell, and he is getting locked up in there because of the IRA. The IRA locks him up, and they want him to do a certain job for him. And one of the characters that is part of the IRA is a priest, right? And the priest walks in with a Rottweiler, right? And immediately Tommy's not intimidated, you know, and of course the dog's there to be intimidating. And the priest starts, you know, talking to him and asking him, you know, certain things, and trying to really intimidate him. And then the only thing Tommy really says is, "What's your dog's name?" You know, he's just stuck on the dog. He's like, "What's your dog's name?" And the priest goes on to keep talking, and then Tommy says, "I can charm dogs," you know, and then he gives it a pause. He says, "Gypsy witchcraft." He says, "And those I can't charm, I kill with my hands." You know, so it kind of feeds off that second quote, you know, that you see in that scene, you know, the life he has chosen, that he is that bad guy. He is that guy that is willing to kill you with his bare hands just to do what he feels he needs to achieve his goal. But alongside those quotes, you know, like, he's incredibly intelligent. You know, whatever situation that is not in his favor, he ends up using to benefit him. The other thing that makes him extremely dangerous is that he doesn't fear death. He almost welcomes it. It's almost as a relief. I think it's towards the end of episode 2 or season 2, where, you know, it looked like that's it. He's about to die, you know, and in that moment when he's about to be shot, he just takes it as a relief. Yeah. And then he doesn't die, you know, and then he has this emotional moment where he almost had that relief. He almost had that, you know, finally it's done, like, yeah, it's over. But of course, being a man that Tommy Shelby is, there's a lot of, you know, mentally damaging stuff that comes along with living that life, you know. Yeah. But it's something about that gangster life that in being so intelligent, one step ahead of your enemies, and you know, being extremely loyal. You know, he's an extremely family-based man, and he wants to build his empire for him and his family so they can all be better off. For that character, I find it extremely attractive, you know, and that genre of show, you know, because here in the U.S., we've traveled that gangster mob mentality with the Italians, you know, all that stuff. We traveled that movie genre, that TV genre, but for the British genre, you know, this is the first of its kind, and this character has really stuck with me.
What was the second quote again? I'm shoveling shit to
remind me. Curly asked him, "Why are you shoveling shit, Curly?" And he says, "What are you doing, Tommy?" And he says, "I'm shoveling shit, Curly." And he says, "Well, why are you doing that?" And he says, "To remind myself why I am who I am."
I see.
Two things. So we were talking about World War One. Apparently, the expression. Have you ever heard "over the top"? Like, oh, he's so over the top. Apparently, that expression comes from World War One, when soldiers were climbing out of the trenches, going over the top. So that was interesting.
I could see that. Yeah.
What is over the top?
It kind of means like you're doing extra, like being extra. You know what I mean?
I see.
Like, or not so much that, but like when you do something beyond expectation.
Okay.
But apparently that's connected to World War One.
I did not know that, but
Yeah.
that makes sense now that you say it.
And two things, or the other thing. Sorry. I think that life is so attractive. I don't know. I just feel like it's very. What they do is just very human, or early human, not early human like evolution, but like how we were talking, like Genghis Khan, like all those people who held empires, because you could very much say that those leaders were all gangsters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's just, it shows, it's very primal in a sense, and it kind of, when we see that, it's just a look into the past of how things used to be. And I feel like everyone felt that way. Everyone felt like they needed to become, be this quote unquote savage, to survive, to get to I guess, live a life, not die early from, your enemies or getting stabbed or your head cut off.
I think the only thing I could say to that though is that it's not gone.
Yes.
That mentality
that's what I'm
is
saying.
still very much here. Yeah,
It's still here, but it's very much on a. Well, I mean, I don't know.
I would say it's a smaller scale than
Yeah,
before.
because
Yeah.
would you?
Like,
would you
we're
say-
definitely numb to it.
Yeah, would you say like the president is a gangster? Because they very much have.
No, I would not compare.
Well, they're very
the
much
president
tied
to a
in.
gangster.
They're very much tied into. They have deaths on their hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just
Deals.
deals. It isn't so much on the lower level, like I guess just doing petty crime or trying to build an empire.
Uh-huh.
It's very much more complicated than that. But I think I would call certain presidents gangsters.
Yeah, I think I would agree to that.
I would agree to a certain extent. Maybe which president? Well, you
yeah,
could
cer-
definitely say like Hitler was definitely a gangster because he rose to power by eliminating
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
opposing
Oh, yeah,
factors.
yeah.
Or Stalin, but it's not like Trump was having hits out on his
yeah.
competitors.
But I mean, like, but
Man, you never fucking know.
yeah, but what I mean is like these gangsters are the ones that are always in power. You know what I mean?
I
Yeah.
would still say that every U.S. president is most likely some type of gangster.
Yeah.
Because they're approving hits being done, right?
Mhm.
In all our history, we've been in war. In all our history, our commander-in-chief is saying, yes, to this attack. Yes, take these people out. Yes, take this group of people out. Selling weapons, selling information. Like, that's gangster activity,
Yeah.
And that's our whole history of our
Yeah,
country.
Yeah. And just to, I mean, not to single anyone out, but just like Obama, how he approved that whole
Like the drone
drone
strikes.
Mhm.
striking. Like more civilians are being killed than actual like insurgents, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gangster shit right there.
Or dude, dropping nukes, bro, in World War
nuke?
II.
Oh my god,
On civilian towns.
that's peak gangster.
Yeah.
That's
So-
shock value. That's
Yeah.
terrorism, man.
So I don't know. I just feel like you have to be. It's almost like you have to be a Thomas Shelby, in a sense, to be the one in power. Most of the time, because there is. I'm not going to rule out the fact that there aren't good people in power, because there very much are.
Yeah.
Very genuine, wholehearted people. But when you look back and you look at emperors and you look at people who had ruled, it's usually the people who ruled with an iron fist.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually they had the biggest empires. Genghis Khan, Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are, I mean, those are the only examples, but
Mhm.
those are the best examples.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that a lot of that, like the characters that we're talking about, is very much a lot of what's inside of us and what we could be.
Yeah. I want to touch on that on my third character. If you guys have nothing. You guys
Oh no, yeah. Well,
You guys still have, yeah,
Yeah.
there's one that you guys haven't talked about yet.
Well, I think it leads into this. So what we're talking about, like, it comes down to power, right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of, like, because we've talked about it before, like, what's so attractive about, like, gangster movies, gangster genre. I think what it is that they're vigilantes, right? They live by their own code. They don't care about the law. They're doing what they think is right and what's best for them. But I think what's even more attractive is that they always start off as someone at the bottom, as quote unquote the little guy, the one who wasn't born into this power, wasn't given this power, they had to take it. And I think that's attractive. These people are taking that power, that freedom of doing what they want without worry of repercussions. And I feel like part of us wants that because that's what the people at the top do. I feel like most people aren't aware that when you are in power, you do have privilege. The law doesn't touch you the same as it does when you're just the average person.
Yeah, and it's a good point you bring up about freedom, because when you live by your own code, like what's more free than that?
Yeah.
Right?
And even more so when you get to this point of power where you're untouchable, where other people's code can't affect you anymore. Us, unfortunately, we have to live to other people's code if we care about the repercussions, right? If we care about the punishments that come from that. But once you get to a point of power where it doesn't affect you anymore, that's when you have freedom. For people who are working every day, they're not going to speed because they don't want the $300 ticket, right? But if you're making $300,000 a year, $300 ticket is chump change to you. You could speed all you want.
Write the ticket off, sir.
Yeah, you're like, just get it over with. I'm still in a rush. I don't care about what this is going to cost. And that's power,
Yeah.
Or even more so if you are a cop and you're able to pull that card to get out of tickets, that's freedom, I don't care about the law. I'll go by my own code, And I think that that comes to another category of characters I had, which was vigilantes. And two that I picked for that was Elliot from Mr. Robot. So I'll start with that one. For those who don't know, Mr. Robot is a show about this guy named Elliot, who's an extremely talented hacker and complete vigilante. He's doing illegal stuff throughout the entire series, but he has his own code. He has his own set of rules, and it starts off with him just using that skill. The very first episode is him taking down. What do you remember? He was doing something illegal. I don't know if it was just like. I don't know if it was human trafficking, or it was just selling like child porn and stuff like that.
It was that very first episode. It was child pornography.
It was child pornography. So he hacked into this guy's network, found that he was actually selling child pornography online on the deep web or dark web. So he used that to blackmail him. Well, he ended up getting him arrested, right? He already called. Yeah. He ended up getting him arrested. So just to give you an idea of this character. And it eventually evolves to this point where he pretty much brings down the capitalist system that we have in our country, and it ends up becoming a much bigger thing involving all the people who kind of pull the strings around the world. And again, that's attractive because he was this guy who was quote unquote the little guy. He was at the bottom. He wasn't a CEO. He was no one important. He wasn't a president. He wasn't an emperor. But he had intelligence and a set of skills that was able to change the world, And
most importantly, he had that drive. But
yeah,
he's such a good character, dude.
Dude, watch that show.
Sorry,
I recommend everybody
watch
that show. It's such a good show.
Because there's so many levels to him too. Because he's just this. Like you'll understand when you see it.
Literally.
Like literally, there's levels to him.
Yeah.
But he was this vigilante guy who wanted to take, and he saw that. He saw what was being done in the world, and he saw the horrible people at the top who were like what James said, that were pulling the strings and making things happen, and why just like crazy shit happened. Like I don't want to give it away. Fuck. Just like.
Well, I mean, we already said spoiler alert.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just.
I think it's been out long enough.
Yeah.
We didn't even say anything.
But like China, like they wanted to annex the Congo, right? But it was kind of like, the United Nations had to come together and they had to like vote on it. But it was more of like the leader of China was kind of bribing, he's like, okay, well, I'll do this for you if you give me the Congo. And it was like, okay, what's more in my interest, right? Like, this is in your interest. Okay, I'll give this to you. Now, let's follow through with what I said. It was more like that. It wasn't very much a consensus. It was just more of who needed what and why, or not why, but who needed
What was their
more.
price?
Yeah, what was their price?
Yeah.
But you just see, like, I don't know. You just see that when you watch the show, like you could.
I feel like it gives you this idea that you have powers.
Yeah, yeah.
That you're
And
not so hopeless.
It could the world could very much be like that. You know, we just don't know. We'll never know, right?
Mm.
It's just, but the way he brings everything to light, and you know, it just great show.
Yeah, it's a really good show.
I have
Another
too much to talk about it.
Well, just to wrap up my idea, another character I thought of just because I've been rewatching the movies, but this is specifically from the first one because the movies kind of made a hard left. But Dom from Fast and Furious,
Oh.
and he's another attractive character, again specifically from the first movie, because he has his code. He doesn't care about the punishments. He doesn't care about, you know, what he's doing is illegal. All he cares about is his code, what he believes is right or wrong, and living the life that he wants to live. You know, and it's funny because I think he does have a pretty quotable line, and it was that the line, I think it says, whether it's by an inch or by a mile, winning is winning.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's one of
I
those
remember
things.
that one,
yeah,
yeah.
it's one of those things to show his drive, to show his ambition, and that he knows what's important to him. Everything else is just kind of noise. I don't know. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going back to living by your own code and how free that is. It's almost like it's almost brave. You know what I mean? Or not almost, but it is brave to live by your own code and
Yeah.
and to have that complete freedom. Because the opposite is that gets taken away from you, right?
Yeah.
You go to jail or you go to prison,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the ultimate sacrifice, is having your freedom and your time taken away.
Yeah.
But to not care about that, I think,
it's bravery.
yeah, in a sense, you know, obviously you're not doing
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
shit. You're not
Yeah.
out there killing people, and you know, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the attractiveness of it.
Yeah. So my last character is arguably, in my opinion, one of the greatest characters ever created, alongside one of the greatest television series ever created, and that is Walter White from Breaking Bad. And I think
Yeah.
Walter White is one of the greatest characters ever created because he embodies what it is to go from the normal, do it how you're supposed to do it, right way, quote unquote right way, you know, have a family, have children, you know, live a normal life, but it isn't going right. He's dying of cancer. He doesn't have the money for treatment. He wants to be able to leave something for his children by the end of it, and he breaks bad. You know, he goes from high school teacher to empire meth
distributor.
selling. Yeah.
He's such a badass when he becomes
Badass
Vigilante,
character,
bro.
as we know as Heisenberg, right? And I think the most important episode of that show is from season 1, Gray Matter, right? This is the episode where he goes to his friend's I think his friend's name is Elliot. He goes to his house because it's his birthday, and Elliot and his wife were partners with Walter in their business, but Walter sold part of his shares to the company, and Walter, being the guy that did all the research, everything that the company is today is off the hard work that he did, right? He sold his shares, and that company ended up becoming a multi-billion-dollar company. You know, I think Walter said in one episode that it was worth like $2.5 billion or something like that. So Walter was already going in with a lot of weight towards, you know, like he knew that was his, you know, and he sold it away. He goes into the episode, and already him and his wife are dressed up as if how poor people would think rich people dress up to parties, you know, but everyone there is wearing like beige, tan, you know, like white pants. Everyone's wearing that. So they're the only two standing out. So right there you can see that Walter doesn't belong, you know. And then the party goes on. Walter, as a gift, gave Elliot a pack of Top Ramen. He wrapped it up in wrapping paper. And when Elliot opened it, you know, at first Walter was like, fuck, like, You know, it wasn't that funny. But he got it for him because when they were in college together, you know, they only survived off that for like 10 months, they said, or something like that. So Walter's like, okay, cool. Like, I didn't fuck up. Finally, him and Elliot sat down. They sat down and reconnected, you know, talking about old times, this and that. And Elliot offers him a job. And in that moment, you can see Walter's face, you know, like change. Like, finally, this is the moment that I can come back to be what I always could have been, you know. And then finally, with one line, Elliot says, we have great health insurance. One of the best. And then in that moment, Walter knew that this was a handout, that he did not look at him as an equal, that he was just trying to just try to give him a better life, but not see him as the same.
It was a pity offer.
Yeah. And in Walter's pride, he decides, I'm not doing that. You know, that's not me. Like, I'm the one that built your company. You know, off my research, you're a billionaire. Right, so he leaves the party. He yells at Skylar, his wife, and then later in the episode, Skylar has a family intervention with Walter. You know, everyone says their piece. You know, one person, Skylar says how you know emotional she is. You could see it. The brother-in-law Hank, Hank. You know, tries to use tries using a sports analog tries to use a sports example. Doesn't work. And then, you know, the sister, Skylar's sister, actually says, like, I want you to do what you believe, you know, is right for yourself. And then there's Walter Jr., his son, calls him a pussy. You know, that he never really lived up to his life. You know, and they argue. And then at the end of it, Walter gives a 4-minute monologue that really shows like who he is as a person at that moment. And then by the end of it, he says, I never really felt like I was alive, you know. And then by the end of the episode, you can see the choice that Walter decides to make. He decides that I'm going to live this life of selling drugs and becoming something more. And then, you know, by the end of the show, the last episode, to tie it all back up, by the end of the episode, he goes to apologize to Skylar for the last time. And throughout the show, Walter's saying that he's doing it for his family. He's doing what he believes right. But by the end of the show, he finally admits to Skylar, like, I did it for myself. You know, like, I did it for me. I liked it. I felt alive. You know, from the very first season, he said that's what he wanted. And then by the end of the season, that's what he got. And, you know, the question I always ask myself is, did he become a monster? Or maybe as a species, we're all born with monsters inside of us? I always ask myself this. It's always up for debate in myself, personally, because I believe we are born with I believe we are born with it, and a large majority of humans are capable of locking their monster away. I believe the famous professor Jung says that's what your shadow is. Your shadow is your monster. I think I've touched on this multiple times with Jordan Peterson talking about it. You know, and there's a certain point where you have to dabble along the line of good and evil to really understand that darker part of yourself. And I think Walter is the one character that really shows that divergence from good to bad, because he did all the right things. You know, he had a good job, had a family, and it wasn't enough. He didn't feel alive, and he jumped into that world and became what he was.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing to touch on too. Like, yeah, we all have monsters inside of us. It's just whether we want to feed them or not.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And the reason that Mr. Robot was so it was so great to see is that you see Elliot, you see him make tough decisions, but you also see him show like a lot of regret towards decisions, and you just see him, I don't know, you see him act towards the decisions that he made. You see him want to take it back in a sense, take back a lot of decisions that he made because they were so grand. And he's like, dude, I went through this, or I did this. But it's important to also point out that it's almost like you get certain people that, like Walter White, who, like, from the first season, they choose. He's like, okay, I'm gonna be this, and he is that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like you also get the opposite of people who choose to be that, regret it,
Yeah.
but then you see that they've already come so far,
They can't go back.
They can't go back anymore.
Mm.
And I feel like that's a big thing, and it just shows that Elliot, the main character, and Mr. Robot, is human.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he wants to do what's best for the world. You know, at a point, it very much becomes he's doing it for himself. You know what I mean? Because it was just his goal and his ambition, and he's like, okay, well, this is how far I've come. Like, there's no reason to turn back now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's just, I think, like, it that very much shows us who we are as human beings, about making tough decisions and requiring, like, that will.
Yeah.
To.
I think one character that stands out to be able to be good but also dabble along that darker side is Luke from Luke Skywalker from Star Wars.
Mm.
You know, by the what is it? The 7th episode, right? No, there's the 5th episode.
Yeah.
You know, you see that change in him, you know, where he comes in wearing all black and he chokes out, like, the guard, you know, like, you can see that there is a change in his character, but he's still the nice Luke Skywalker that I remember, but that he's willing to go that extra step to get what he needs to get, you know, and he doesn't let his hatred consume him, especially by the 6th episode. Sorry, I totally coughed on you. By the 6th episode, where they're Palpatine is trying to have him kill Vader. You know, like, he fights him, but he's not. That's not who he is. Like, he's not willing to let the monster in him consume him.
Yeah.
You know, I think there has to be a balance between the two, and, you know, it's hard to say what a balance is for everyday people. You know, everyone's unique and everyone's different. You know, it's like, how much are you willing to let that consume you?
Yeah, and, like, you know, like, I used to look at villains and, like, people, like, bad people, in movies.
Into the mic, Andy.
Sorry. And I used to be like, man, how could you make this decision? Like, how are you just so, like, from the outside, it looks easy when, you know, they make horrible decisions, you know, and that's why I like when they show, like, the process of them becoming who they are.
Yeah, like a little background story.
Yeah, it's because, like, you see that they were actually, you know, just like you.
Yeah.
Like, decisions used to be hard at a point when they used to make, God damn it, I had a point and forgot it.
Well,
Anyways.
to go along with that, you know, I talk about Jordan Peterson a lot, and he has his own YouTube channel, and there's courses that he goes through online, like 2-hour, 3-hour long episodes that talk about certain things. But one thing that stuck with me is that when he was getting into the field of psychology, his mentor took him to a prison. Have I shared this story with you guys?
Yeah.
Have I shared it with you, Andy?
Yeah, with
maybe. Yeah.
I think so.
The guy was, I think, a serial killer.
And he hung out with him for like a day, right?
For like an hour, you know?
Okay.
And he had no idea that he was a serial killer. You know, by the end of it, he asked him, you know, like, why are you in here? And he told him, like, oh, I killed this many people. And Jordan Peterson was trying to understand, like, you know, how can he spend an hour with a serial killer and not be even... not even known to him that he was, you know, like, it was completely, he was a completely normal human being within that hour, you know. So that's what inspired him to try to teach himself to understand why it is that people do bad things. Like, in one of the videos, he says that the guards in Nazi Germany for Auschwitz what they would do is make some of the prisoners carry 50-pound bags of salt from one end of the prison to the other just because they wanted them to, and he's trying to understand, like, why would someone do that? And it's a great video, it's an hour or two long, if you're willing to sit through it, but it's really good and it's insightful to, like, the idea that, these people aren't born evil. Everyone's capable of getting to these points. I think that's what makes I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the 3 characters I said aren't inherently considered good guys, like Doc Holliday, he's killed people, Tommy Shelby's killed people. I gravitate towards the characters that are quote unquote more bad than good. And I feel like that's because there's something that I'm trying to understand on why it is that they do it, and try to see, like, what is it that in me that, on when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Why are you so appealed to it?
Yeah.
Why are you attracted to it?
Yeah. But I am attracted to it. And these are why they're my 3 favorite characters right now. I have other ones. I wrote down a list, but I was like, I'm not going through all these guys.
I love movie talk.
But yeah, I mean, researching about this, some of the great characters that were created, you could think of Woody from Toy Story. There has to be, well, when I say this, there also has to be a clear balance between.
There's a snake in my boot.
There has to be a clear balance between want versus need, right? Woody wants to be Andy's favorite character, but what he needs to realize is that he needs to share. He needs to be able to be that favorite toy, but also share. You could think of Walter White for Breaking Bad. He says that he wants to, provide for his family and get the treatment and be able to afford it. But really what he needs is to feel alive. You think of Neo. He wants to save Neo from the Matrix. He wants to save humanity. But really what he needs is to believe in himself that he is the one. It's kind of the balance between what makes a great character. And if you have one more than the other, you have something like Transformers. There's a lot of want in that movie. In the very first one, there's a lot of want to what are they going after? The
Allspark, right?
In the first one?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it is the Allspark, but was that in the first one?
Yeah, I remember hearing that, but I think it was the first one. It was the Cube, right?
Yeah, because Megatron, because it was able to turn anything into a Decepticon or.
Yeah, but if you look at that movie, that's a lot of want. But by the end of the movie, the need that universal need that you can learn from isn't there. You just leave it like, oh, that's pretty cool. But there's nothing emotional that you leave with.
That's an interesting thing, because there's definitely, you watch things differently in terms of how they're presented, right? Because I was thinking of other characters who aren't necessarily characters, like in reality shows, stuff like that.
Okay.
And they just like they just hit differently. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a different experience watching that type of stuff, where you're no longer trying to learn anything. You're no longer trying to connect. You just want mind-numbing entertainment.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of
or some characters just give out like a mood. Like the way they deliver lines, the way they say shit, the way they act. It's like that's a mood right there. Like that's just
And it's just, that's the thing. Like, Transformers is the perfect example. I don't watch that to learn or to connect. I'm just like, oh, let's just see some cool action and explosions.
See some robots fighting robots.
Yeah.
It's just like a freaking robo fighters, pretty much.
Yeah. But I mean, that's all I got to deliver on this episode, guys. I feel like I spent a good amount of time trying to like look up stuff. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, One thing I'll give you guys is EmpireOnline.com. They rank the top 100 greatest movie characters, and I'll give you guys the top 5. Ellen Ripley from Alien. She was the first like real badass female character.
Yeah.
Alien Covenant. Fuck.
Batman. was number 4, which I
Okay.
feel is pretty good because Batman,
Christian Bale's Batman.
just
Or
Batman
which-
in general. 'Cause if you think
okay,
of it as
just
a
in general.
movie character, like that
Yeah.
or that movie series is still going.
Yeah.
Han Solo from Star Wars,
Yeah.
one of the best. James Bond, because
Mm.
James Bond's been going on for like 50 years now, and then Indiana Jones.
Interesting.
Yeah, number
Harrison
1.
Ford,
In
bro.
his- yeah,
Really?
That really just
Number
shows-
1, why?
That really just shows Harrison Ford's capability of making.
I don't know
or
if I
having great
agree with that. I
characters.
don't know if Indiana Jones is the number 1 character.
Is it what it is?
This is actually one of the. I think the 3rd list I came across that said the same thing.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Why?
It was between James Bond and Indiana Jones every time.
just like favorite movie characters or
Greatest movie characters.
Greatest.
Why?
Yeah.
Why greatest though? I don't think he's that like. Really.
Yeah. I've come across multiple
That's
lists.
strange.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love Indiana Jones, but like I just feel like there's other characters that are more developed, that have more layers.
Uh-huh.
You know, I
Yeah.
feel like Indiana Jones is very much an old school, pretty linear, like flat character.
I feel like it gives enough though to where you don't find a whole lot of flaws. When you add like more movies with more layers, then you can start seeing more flaws, and then you can pick through them and be like, I don't really like them.
He's like not human. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Indy isn't human. Same with James Bond.
No, yeah.
That's weird. That's weird. I thought it would be someone who's more like you'd be able to connect more with. Huh.
That's what I found
Dang.
on the list.
Damn. Well, props to Harrison Ford.
Yeah, but for me personally, other great characters is Vito Corleone from The Godfather.
I haven't
never seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great movie. Aragon from Lord of the Rings.
Yes, yes.
Great character. John Wick.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Come on. And then my last 2, Thomas Shelby and Walter White. Those are some of my favorites.
Walter White, man.
I was gonna mention him, but I decided to go with Elliot instead. That's funny that you brought him up.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Breaking Bad isn't talked a whole lot anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I still consider it one
Still
of the
one of the
best
best
TV
series
series
out there.
ever
Yeah.
out there. Yeah,
Definitely. I would say so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very well made.
Yeah.
But I think that's it, boys. I think we should
Should
wrap it
wrap.
up here.
Yeah. I think I'm next, right?
You are next, yes.
Okay.
Uh,
gotta
Circle
think.
Fam, Circle Fam. Thank you for listening to this episode. I took some time to research it, and I hope it was a good one for you guys. But we're out of here. Remember, only you can prevent forest fires. Don't let the white man get you down. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Me? Why did you point, dude? You got,
Just-
you got a pointing problem? Huh? I'm kidding.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say. I talked a lot. So thank you for listening. And stay tuned for James's episode. Goodbye.
Thank you guys for listening. Phillip, thank you for hosting this one. Honestly, I didn't want to offer anything because I just enjoyed listening to you guys. But that's definitely, those are things I'm gonna start paying attention to more, is how the characters are and why they are the way they are.
Oh, one thing. Before we close it off, I'm sorry, Daniel.
You're good.
Have you guys on YouTube? They have a thing called Roundtable where a bunch of great actors come together, and there's a host, and they all each talk about like their careers, and they feed off each other.
I have seen yeah.
I fucking
Like
love
one.
those.
I think I've
Everyone
seen
should go
one.
check those out. Those are great. Just it's nice to see them interact with people, quote unquote, on their level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like they can just kind of be like a little human. You don't get to see someone that they're portraying. You actually get to see who they are. So I'd highly recommend that. I think it's called Actors Roundtable or something like that.
Mm.
But if you want to see some good like actor content, I would say go check that out.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Daniel. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys.
Cut him off right at the end.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you everyone. We'll see what next week's episode holds for us. I haven't really thought about it yet, but once in, always in. Thank you for joining the circle.